The mining ship Horizon Light floated in the quiet space between two stars. Its crew of 12 humans worked long shifts every day, drilling asteroids and collecting valuable metals. The work was not glamorous, but it was important for building stations and ships back home. Ravi, the ship's communication officer, sat at his desk scanning for signals. Most days, he only heard the regular beeps from Earth's network and the hum of the ship's own machines. On this particular day, however, something different caught his ear. It was faint at first, a pattern of sounds too organized to be natural. "Captain." "Myra," Ravi called. "I think I found something." Captain Myra walked over, her boots tapping gently on the floor. She was calm, steady, and respected by her crew. She leaned over Ravi's shoulder, listening closely. "What is it?" she asked. "It is not from Earth," Ravi explained. "It is not one of our satellites. The signal repeats every 6 seconds. Listen to this." He adjusted the receiver, and suddenly the room filled with a deep, drawn-out voice. The words were strange, translated roughly by the ship's systems. "By order of the Supreme Throne, let it be known that Sector 42 has failed once again to deliver its tribute. The failure is noted, and discipline will be severe." The crew exchanged surprised looks. The voice continued, listing names, sectors, and official decrees. But what stood out most was the tone. It was overly dramatic, as if someone were reading a play instead of giving real orders. Mira crossed her arms. "This is not a human broadcast. It must be someone else." Ravi nodded. "Yes, and it is not just one message. I think it is a whole network. There are hundreds of these signals overlapping, like reports being sent across a massive government." The crew gathered in the communication room, listening to one recording after another. Each message carried the same style: grand words, big promises, and long complaints. One report described how a fleet of ships failed to capture a single small colony. Another told of governors arguing over food supplies. At first, the crew felt cautious. Could this be the legendary sign of alien life humans had waited for? But soon their caution turned into surprise, and then into laughter. "Listen to this," Ravi said, playing a recording where an official shouted for 3 minutes about missing uniforms. Ken, the engineer, shook his head. "An empire that cannot keep track of shirts is not much of an empire." The others chuckled. Even Captain Mira could not hide her smile. The voices that were meant to sound powerful instead sounded clumsy and full of mistakes. For the next few days, Ravi worked nonstop to collect more of these transmissions. The ship stored hours of recordings, and the crew listened during meals. What they heard painted a strange picture: a galactic empire that ruled many worlds, but seemed endlessly troubled by failure. One night, as the crew sat together in the mess hall, Ken spoke thoughtfully. "All my life, I imagined aliens as beings far ahead of us. I thought they would be wise, organized, and almost perfect. But this," he waved toward the speaker, playing yet another dramatic complaint, "this is just silly." Mira sipped her tea. Maybe they were great once. Maybe now they only know how to act great, not how to be great. The crew fell silent for a moment, considering her words. Then another recording started, where an official mixed up the names of 2 planets and spent 5 minutes correcting himself. The silence broke with laughter once again. What began as surprise now turned into curiosity. If these voices truly belonged to a galactic empire, where were they exactly? How large was their territory? And why did they sound so desperate in every broadcast? The crew started to keep notes, writing down the names of sectors and rulers they heard in the signals. Slowly, a map began to form, showing connections between the different reports. It seemed the empire stretched far, but its hold was weak. One afternoon, Ravi gathered everyone in the control room. He pointed to the map glowing on the screen. "Look at this pattern. These signals come from all directions, meaning their territory surrounds us on many sides. Yet no one has ever seen them here before. It is as if they grew so large that they lost track of us entirely." Myra nodded. "Slowly. And now we stumble upon them by chance. They speak of power, but we only hear confusion. This changes everything. Humanity is not alone. But humanity may not need to fear either." The crew felt a mix of wonder and amusement. They had dreamed of meeting powerful alien civilizations. Instead, they found a tired empire busy arguing with itself. That night, as the ship drifted quietly through the stars, Mira stood by the window, looking at the endless sky. She thought about Earth, about how people there would react when they learned the truth. She smiled softly. "They will laugh," she whispered to herself. "The whole world will laugh." And in that moment, the discovery no longer felt frightening. It felt like the beginning of a new kind of story, one where humans did not tremble before alien power, but instead looked at it with clear eyes and a bit of humor. The signals continued to arrive, hour after hour, like voices from a stage play. That never ended. And the humans of Horizon Light listened, amused witnesses to the strange drama of the Galactic Empire they had just discovered. The news of the strange discovery spread quickly once the Horizon Light returned to Earth. People all over the world gathered to hear the recordings of the Galactic Empire. At first, there was shock. An empire across the stars was a huge idea to accept. But as more recordings played, the shock turned into laughter. The speeches were shown on giant screens in city squares. Citizens watched with wide eyes as officials from the empire declared impossible promises and dramatic threats. A governor demanded that 3 planets deliver a mountain of grain in 1 week. A commander admitted his fleet could not chase a group of farmers who had flown away in old ships. Children repeated the words in silly voices, pretending to be mighty rulers. Workers on break played the recordings to pass the time. What was supposed to sound strong ended up sounding like theater. Still, leaders on Earth knew they had to be careful. This was first contact with another civilization. Even if the Empire looked weak, it ruled hundreds of worlds. Humanity had just begun traveling between nearby stars. The gap in scale was huge. A decision was made. Earth would send a diplomatic message, short and polite. The message simply said, "We greet the Galactic Empire. We are humans from the planet Earth. We wish to meet in peace." Weeks passed. The answer finally came. It arrived in the same overly serious style as the other transmissions. By the will of the Supreme Throne, the Empire shall grant audience to the new species. An envoy shall visit the planet Earth. Prepare yourselves to receive the honor of Imperial presence. On Earth, excitement filled the air. The first true meeting with Ains was about to happen. A bright silver ship entered the solar system 2 months later. It was larger than any human vessel, shaped like a long cylinder, with glowing rings turning around its center. The ship moved slowly, as if trying to look impressive. The world watched as the alien craft landed gently near Earth's orbital station. A welcoming team waited, including Captain Myra from the Horizon Light and a group of scientists, translators, and cultural experts. The doors of the alien ship opened. Out stepped tall figures dressed in shining robes. Their heads were covered with golden crowns that seemed too heavy to wear. They carried staffs decorated with crystals. The leader stepped forward and spoke through a translator device. His voice was deep and full of pride. "Behold, the envoys of the Galactic Empire. We bring the wisdom of 1,000 worlds. You humans of Earth have entered the age of true order." The humans nodded politely, but several of them had to press their lips together to hide smiles. The grand speech sounded exactly like the recordings. Captain Mira welcomed them calmly. "We are honored to meet you. We hope this is the start of friendship and understanding." The alien envoy lifted his staff high. "Yes, yes. Friendship under the guidance of the Empire. Your world is small, but fear not, for the throne watches over even the smallest." Behind him, another envoy whispered too loudly. "Did he say Earth or Hearth? I keep forgetting the name." The translator repeated both words, Earth, Hearth, causing confusion. Several humans covered their mouths to keep from laughing. As the meeting continued, the aliens told long stories about the Empire's history. They spoke of battles won, colonies founded, and traditions followed. Yet when asked simple questions about how their ships worked or how their government operated, their answers were vague. They often repeated phrases like "by ancient custom" or "by the will of the throne." The human scientists listened carefully. They exchanged quiet notes with each other. It seemed the Empire was proud of its past, but less certain about its present. During one part of the discussion, an alien envoy proudly declared, "Our fleets are unmatched. No foe dares resist us." At that moment, another envoy interrupted him. "Except for that one time with the Green Rebellion," he muttered. The translator repeated the words, and the room filled with awkward silence. The humans looked at one another, eyes wide with amusement. Captain Myra kept a straight face, though she wanted to laugh. Later, the humans offered a tour of their orbital station. The envoys agreed, though they whispered to each other about how small and simple everything looked. But when they saw the efficiency of the machines and the clean design of the systems, their proud expressions faded slightly. "This food recycler works nonstop with almost no waste," explained one of the human scientists. "It feeds the entire station with little effort." The aliens stared, surprised. Their own systems often broke down, requiring endless repairs and arguments over supplies. Yet here was a young world like Earth, managing smoothly. By the end of the visit, the envoys returned to their ship with the same grand speeches they had arrived with. They promised to deliver reports to the throne and to return with instructions for Earth's bright future. When the alien ship left, the humans on the station finally let their laughter out. "Did you hear when they forgot our planet's name again?" Ken joked. Ravi shook his head, still smiling. "They came expecting us to be afraid. Instead, we could barely take them seriously." Captain Mira spoke last, her voice steady but thoughtful. "Do not mistake their pride for weakness alone. They still control many worlds. But perhaps their power is only on the surface. Underneath, I think they are struggling." The crew nodded. They could sense it too. The Empire was large, but it seemed fragile. As the silver ship vanished into the distance, Earth prepared for the next stage of contact. Humanity had finally met the Galactic Empire. But instead of fear, they felt curiosity and quiet amusement. The mighty Empire looked more like a tired actor repeating old lines, and the humans wondered how long the play could continue before the audience stopped believing in it at all. When the Horizon Light returned to Earth the second time, it did not just carry stories of the envoys. It carried something far more entertaining. Ravi had spent weeks collecting the strange recordings of the Galactic Empire, and now he shared them with Earth's networks. The very first broadcast began on a calm evening. People at home tuned in expecting a serious report about aliens. Instead, they heard a voice thundering, "By the will of the Supreme Throne, Sector 32 must send twice the tribute of last year. Failure shall be recorded and disgrace shall follow." The words were strong, but the translation made the tone sound clumsy. A pause followed as if the speaker had lost his place, and then he coughed loudly before continuing. Viewers blinked at their screens. A few seconds later, laughter broke out across living rooms. schools, and Scifi. Within days, more recordings were released. Citizens watched in delight as governors argued about lost shipments of fruit or fleets that forgot their flight plans. In one recording, two officials spent 10 minutes debating whether a certain planet was numbered 47 or 40-8. Clips spread across Earth like wildfire. People edited them into short videos, adding music or playful captions. Children performed the speeches in parks, waving sticks like the envoy's golden staffs. One popular broadcast played every evening on the World Network. It was called The Empire Show. Each night, hosts introduced a new recording, then laughed together with the audience as the Empire's serious words turned into comedy. The hosts wore shiny paper crowns, pretending to be imperial envoys, and exaggerated every sentence. Soon, Earth was not just listening. Earth was enjoying. Captain Mira watched all this with careful eyes. She was not against the humor, but she reminded her crew that the Empire was still powerful in size. Do not forget, she told them, we laugh, but they rule many worlds. Their mistakes are real, yet their reach is wide. We must stay thoughtful even while we smile. Her words were wise, but even she could not resist chuckling when one recording played a governor, shouting so loudly that his translator broke mid-sentence. The strange thing was that the recordings did more than entertain. They made people feel confident. For years, humans had wondered what first contact with aliens would be like. Many feared it would be frightening, with unknown beings far stronger than them. But now, after hearing the Empire, people felt less afraid. The aliens did not seem like untouchable giants. They seemed human in their flaws, almost like neighbors arguing loudly across the street. Universities began studying the recordings. Seriously, linguists analyzed the language. Historians compared the Empire's style to old human kingdoms that had once ruled with pride, but later weakened through ceremony. Engineers noticed that the Empire rarely spoke about science or discovery, only about tradition and tribute. In classrooms, teachers played the recordings for students, asking them what they noticed. Young learners pointed out how the Empire spoke of power but rarely explained how it solved problems. Some students even wrote essays with titles like Why the Empire Needs Better Planning. News reporters also joined in. They broadcast long programs explaining that the Empire might be grand in name but weak in practice. The recordings became a mirror that revealed cracks in the mighty image. Even governments began to see opportunity. If the Empire was not as strong as it claimed, then Earth did not need to rush into submission. Instead, humans could meet the aliens as equals with calm minds and steady hands. One evening, a large gathering took place in the central city square. Huge screens were set up, and thousands of people arrived. Families sat together, waiting eagerly. The mayor of the city stepped forward and said, "Tonight, we share the voices of the Empire, not with fear, but with joy. Let us listen, let us learn, and let us laugh." The crowd cheered, and the speakers played a fresh recording. An imperial officer was complaining about the wrong color of uniforms delivered to his base. The translation repeated the word wrong at least 20 times. The officer's voice grew higher with every repeat. By the end, the crowd roared with laughter, clapping and cheering. Across the galaxy, the Empire had meant these recordings to show control and strength. On Earth, they became entertainment, education, and even inspiration. Back on the orbital station, Ravi sat with Ken, both watching a broadcast on a small screen. Ken laughed so hard, he nearly dropped his tea. They wanted us to tremble, but look at us. We turned them into a comedy series. Ravi grinned. Yes, and now the whole world feels stronger because of it. People are no longer asking if aliens will rule us. They are asking if the Empire even rules itself. Captain Myra entered quietly. She looked at the screen where a host was pretending to cough like the imperial officer. She shook her head, half amused, half serious. Humor is powerful, she said softly. But remember, the Empire is watching too. They will not understand why we laugh. They expect fear. When they find only laughter, they may be confused, even unsettled. The others nodded, but the truth was clear. Humanity had discovered something new about itself. By sharing and laughing together, people no longer felt small in the face of the stars. The recordings continued to pour in from space, each one adding to the growing collection. And every night, Earth listened. They laughed, they studied, and they began to imagine a future where humans were not the audience of the Empire's drama, but perhaps the writers of a new story altogether. The first visit from the Galactic Empire had left Earth buzzing with excitement and curiosity. People laughed at the envoy's speeches, but leaders on Earth also knew it was time to look deeper. Jokes were fun, but knowledge was important. If the Empire truly ruled hundreds of worlds, humans needed to understand how it worked. So, Earth invited the envoys back for a second round of talks. This time, the meeting would not be about grand speeches or ceremony. It would be about questions. Simple questions. Questions that revealed how much the Empire truly understood. The alien ship returned with the same shining robes and heavy crowns. The envoys looked proud as they entered the conference hall on the orbital station. But instead of banners and music, they found a circle of chairs, notebooks, and recording devices. Waiting for them were scientists, engineers, and historians. From Earth, ready with calm expressions, Captain Myra welcomed them. "We thank you for visiting again. This time, we wish to exchange knowledge. We hope to learn from one another." The chief envoy lifted his staff. "Indeed, the throne commands wisdom, and wisdom shall be shared." The first human scientist, Dr. Lena, began with a friendly smile. "Can you explain how your ships generate power for long voyages? What system do you use to travel such distances?" The envoys straightened their robes. One cleared his throat. "Our ships move by the will of tradition. The sacred engines are blessed and maintained by the engineers of the throne. Their power has lasted for centuries, and it will last for centuries more." Dr. Lena paused politely. "But how do they work? What kind of fuel or energy source do they use?" The envoy repeated. "They work by tradition and blessing." The humans exchanged glances. Ken, the engineer from Horizon Light, nearly laughed but held it back. Next, Ravi asked a question. "How do you manage communication across so many worlds? What technology keeps your empire connected?" The envoy answered proudly. "We use the Imperial Network, given to us long ago. The network is sacred. It carries the voice of the throne everywhere." Ravi tilted his head. "Yes, but what happens when the system fails? Do you have backups or ways to repair it?" The envoy looked uncomfortable. "It does not fail. The throne ensures order." At this, several human scientists wrote quiet notes. They could see now that much of the empire ran on ritual and faith rather than clear understanding. Later, another scientist asked, "How do you choose your leaders? Do the people vote, or is there a council?" The envoy lifted his staff proudly. "Leaders are chosen by blood and by tradition. The throne decides who holds power. It has always been so. It will always be so." The humans nodded politely. Though many thought of their own governments back on Earth, their systems were not perfect. But at least they asked questions, debated, and adapted. The Empire seemed locked in an endless circle of old customs. As the hours passed, the pattern became clear. Every question humans asked, about farming methods, about building cities, about solving disputes, was answered with the same words: tradition, blessing, or will of the throne. Almost never with practical detail. During a short break, Ken whispered to Myra, "They remind me of someone telling stories about a machine without ever knowing how to fix it." Myra nodded. "Yes, they hold the machine, but they do not understand it." When the talks resumed, the humans tried another approach. They shared some of their own methods first. A young scientist explained how Earth used satellites to predict weather and protect crops. She showed clear numbers and diagrams. The envoys were impressed at first, but then quickly grew stiff. One of them muttered, "Such systems are small compared to the greatness of the Empire." Yet their eyes betrayed surprise. They had not expected such practical skill from a small world like Earth. By the end of the meeting, both sides exchanged polite farewells. The envoys left with their crowns held high, though their steps were slower than before. After they departed, the human team gathered in the conference hall. Ravi spread out his notes. They gave almost no clear answers. They speak of power, but I think much of their knowledge is fading. They live by old habits, not real understanding. Dr. Lena agreed. It is like they are reciting lessons without knowing the meaning behind the words. They believe in the throne, but belief does not explain how things work. Ken laughed softly. No wonder their messages sound like theater. They are reading from a script, not solving real problems. Captain Myra looked thoughtful. This tells us something important. The Empire may look large, but its strength is not in wisdom or knowledge. It is only an image. That image is powerful, yes, but images can fade when the truth is shown. Across Earth, people listened eagerly as news of the talks was shared. Citizens laughed again at the envoys' vague answers, but they also felt proud. Humanity was asking simple, clear questions that the mighty empire could not answer. In classrooms, teachers told students, "Remember this. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is ask a question. If the answer is empty, you learn more than if you had stayed silent." On the orbital station, as the stars glowed outside the windows, Mira stood with Ravi and Ken. She looked out at the sky, imagining the countless worlds under the Empire's rule. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "their people are waiting for questions too. Perhaps no one has asked them in a long time." The others nodded. They felt a quiet strength in knowing that humans, new to the galactic stage, had revealed something the Empire tried to hide. Not with weapons, not with threats, but with curiosity and simple words. And so Earth's place among the stars grew not through fear, but through questions that cut deeper than any speech. The questions had left the envoys unsettled, but Earth was not satisfied with half-answers. Curiosity grew stronger every day. If the Empire was as great as it claimed, then its worlds must shine with wonder. And if not, then perhaps the truth would look very different. So Earth sent out explorers. Small crews boarded ships and traveled along the paths of the Empire's signals. Among them were Captain Mira, Ravi, and Ken from the Horizon Light. They wanted to see with their own eyes what lay behind the grand words. Their first stop was a planet called Orcs, which the recordings described as a jewel of the throne. The humans expected bright cities, tall towers, and endless activity. But as they entered orbit, the view surprised them. The planet was not dark or broken, but it was far from a jewel. Towns looked crowded, and many buildings were in need of repair. The great spaceport had ships lined up, waiting for fuel that never seemed to arrive. When the crew landed, citizens greeted them with wide eyes. The people of Orcs had never seen humans before. They expected strict guards to control the visit. But instead, the citizens welcomed them openly. "You come from Earth," one local man said with excitement. "We have heard of your broadcasts. The way you speak, the way you laugh. It is different. It is free." Myra exchanged a quick glance with Ravi. "You have heard our broadcasts." "Yes," the man whispered. "We listen in secret." "You're Voices reach us through the Imperial network, though they try to block it. We laugh quietly at night so the officials do not notice. The humans were stunned. Their playful jokes, their comedy shows, even the children's imitations, all had traveled across the stars. The Empire's citizens were listening. As the crew walked through the city, they saw more signs of struggle. Machines were rusting. Streets were cracked. Farmers sold food in small baskets because larger shipments were delayed for months. Yet the people were lively. They gathered around the humans, eager to hear stories. One woman asked, "Is it true that on Earth, children ask leaders questions in schools? Do leaders answer them?" Ken smiled. "Yes, children ask questions. Sometimes the questions are simple, but leaders try to answer. If the answer is not clear, the children keep asking until they understand." The crowd gasped with delight, as if hearing a wonderful secret. From Orcs, the humans traveled to another world, Jorah. The Empire had called it a center of order and culture. But Jorah too told a different story. The central square had statues of past rulers, yet the walls were chipped and faded. Officials marched through the streets in fine robes, but ordinary citizens stood in long lines for basic supplies. Once again, the people welcomed the humans. They shared stories of endless rules and endless waiting. A shopkeeper laughed as he explained, "We fill out 10 forms just to fix a broken roof. By the time permission comes, the rain has already ruined the house." The humans took notes, recording what they saw. Everywhere they went, the citizens seemed less loyal to the Empire than the speeches suggested. Instead, they were curious about Earth. They admired the way humans use simple, practical methods to solve problems instead of hiding behind ceremony. At night, Ravi broadcast updates back to Earth. His reports were lighthearted but truthful. He described the fuel lines on Orcs as the galaxy's longest waiting game, and the statues on Jorah as more polished than the streets. People on Earth laughed, but they also listened carefully. The image of the mighty Empire was fading. Soon, these reports spread beyond Earth. Citizens across the Empire began hearing them too. They shared the recordings quietly, passing them from one world to another. In hidden corners, families gathered around small receivers, listening to the voices of humans who spoke plainly, without fear. On the horizon light, Ken leaned back in his chair after another day of exploration. "You know what is strange?" he said to Mira and Ravi. "They call themselves rulers of hundreds of worlds, but the people act as if they are waiting for something better. They are tired of old speeches. They want honesty." Mira nodded. "Yes, the Empire controls the stage, but the audience no longer believes the play. Our laughter only shows them what they already feel." Ravi added quietly, "The truth is embarrassing for them, but for us, it is hope. We are not small beside them. We are clear." The crew knew then that their journey was more than discovery. They were holding up a mirror to the Empire, and the reflection was not what the rulers wanted the galaxy to see. When they left Jorah, hundreds of citizens gathered at the spaceport. They waved as the human ship rose into the sky. Children held up signs they had painted with bright colors, copying Earth's word for freedom, even though they barely understood its meaning. Inside the ship, Myra watched from the window. Her heart felt heavy and light at the same time. Heavy with the weight of what the people endured, but light with the knowledge that change might begin with something as simple as laughter and truth. The horizon, light set course for the next world, carrying with it the stories of Orcs and Jorah. Stories not of greatness, but of cracks in the throne. And across Earth and the Empire, more and more people began to see the same thing. The mighty Galactic Empire was not so mighty after all. Its truth was embarrassing, and that truth could no longer be hidden. After visiting Orcs and Jorah, the humans returned to Earth with reports that amazed the world. Every broadcast they sent showed the cracks in the Galactic Empire. People laughed at the stories, but behind the laughter was a new confidence. Humanity realized that words and humor could reveal truths that no fleet or army could hide. Captain Mira gathered her team on the horizon light. "The Empire believes strength comes from fear and ceremony," she said. "We have seen there." People smile at us quietly. They are tired of false power. We can help them see that the Empire is not invincible. Ken grinned. "You mean, use laughter as a weapon?" "Yes," Mira replied. "Not to harm anyone, but to show the truth. Humor makes fear disappear. When people laugh at what seems mighty, the might begins to shrink." Ravi nodded. "And if the citizens of the Empire see that humans are not afraid, they may begin to question the throne themselves. Knowledge and courage can travel faster than fleets." Their plan was simple. They would create broadcasts aimed at the Empire, but unlike the first visits, these were not formal or polite. They would tell stories of the Empire as they saw it. Long lines, broken machines, officials lost in ceremony, and citizens quietly laughing. Every story would be clear, simple, and slightly humorous. The first broadcast went out to Orcs. It showed a street where a fuel shipment was late for months. The narrator described how officials marched proudly, pretending nothing was wrong, while a group of citizens painted signs saying, "Hurry slowly." The message was not harsh. It was lighthearted, funny, and true. Citizens of Orcs laughed openly. Children giggled in the streets. Families whispered, "This is exactly how it is." Officials, however, looked confused and annoyed. They could not stop the broadcast. Next, the team sent a message to Jorah. It described the central square, the statues, and the chipped walls in a playful voice. They narrated a story about two officials who argued for hours about which statue to clean first, while the streets were full of puddles from a recent storm. People across Jorah laughed until tears came. Myra watched the reports come in. They are listening. They are noticing. And they are laughing. Ken added, "The Empire's image is cracking. They depend on the belief that they are perfect. Humor shows they are not." Ravi leaned over the console. "And the best part is, we are not forcing anyone. We are only showing the truth. They choose to see it and laugh." The power shifts quietly, but it shifts. Over weeks, the broadcast reached other planets. On each world, people watched and shared. Citizens started whispering in markets and schools about the stories. Laughter spread faster than any fleet. It became a signal of hope and courage. Even some lower officials began to smile. They remembered that their job was meant to help people, not only impress the throne. They could not speak openly, but inside, they understood the message. Myra reflected on the power of simplicity. Our strength is in our honesty. We do not need weapons to show truth. We do not need to fight. We need to speak clearly, and the rest follows. On Earth, the broadcast became a sensation. Families gathered around screens to watch the adventures of humans in the Empire's worlds. Children painted posters with funny versions of official titles. Teachers used the stories to show students that curiosity and laughter were stronger than fear. The Galactic Empire tried to respond. Envoys sent messages demanding silence and respect. Their words were formal, full of titles, and meant to frighten. But humans replied with simple jokes. One broadcast asked, "If the throne is so powerful, why does it take a whole week to deliver a single message?" Citizens across the Empire laughed and shared it with friends. Ravi noticed something unusual. The officials are confused. They do not know how to stop laughter. They can block ships or sensors, but they cannot block joy. Ken chuckled. "Who would have thought our greatest weapon would be smiles and giggles?" Mira smiled, watching the stars outside the ship's window. "We are proving something new. Power is not only about control. It is about respect, understanding, and honesty. The Empire forgot that. Humans never will. Soon, laughter became a quiet rebellion. Citizens began asking simple questions, just like humans had. Why do we wait so long? Why do we obey rules that do not help? Can't we do things differently? These questions, combined with the broadcasts, spread a wave of curiosity and courage. The humans did not rush or demand change. They simply told stories, laughed at what was not perfect, and showed that a small world like Earth could be brave and clear-eyed as the Horizon Light moved to its next destination. Mira whispered to her crew, "History will remember this not as a war, but as a time when truth and laughter reached across the stars." Ken grinned, and no one had to fire a single shot. Ravi laughed softly. The Empire will remember this day. And maybe, just maybe, they will begin to listen. And so, humor became a tool of hope. Simple stories, simple questions, and simple laughter began to change the galaxy quietly. It showed that the strongest force was not fear or tradition, but the courage to see the truth and smile. The galaxy had changed. Slowly, quietly, but undeniably, the influence of Earth's humans reached farther than any fleet or force. Their simple broadcasts, full of honesty and laughter, had shown the cracks in the Galactic Empire. Citizens on countless worlds whispered, laughed, and shared stories of the Empire as it really was. Captain Myra and her crew of the Horizon Light traveled from world to world, not as conquerors, but as messengers. Every new planet they visited added another thread to the growing web of curiosity. The humans saw it clearly. The Empire's power had always been built on appearances. Now, those appearances were no longer enough. On a world called Valora, the crew landed to find a city that had long waited for repairs. Officials were surprised to see humans arrive, but citizens greeted them openly. Children ran alongside the humans, holding painted banners that read, "Truth is stronger," in the local language. Ravi smiled. "This is becoming bigger than we imagined." Mira nodded. "It is. People are learning that strength is not about fear. It is about knowledge, courage, and honesty." In Valora's central square, the humans held a small gathering. They told stories of Oris and Jorah, the long waits, the cracked streets, and the funny mistakes of officials. The citizens laughed heartily. One old man raised his hand. "We have been waiting to hear the truth," he said. "Not from the Empire, but from you. Your words are simple, but they are stronger than any law or command." Kem looked at Myra. "Do you think they will try to resist the Empire openly?" Myra shook her head. "No. They are learning slowly, in their own way. Change does not come with anger. It comes with understanding." Meanwhile, the empires. Leaders grew uneasy. Reports of humans traveling the galaxy, telling stories and spreading laughter, had reached the throne. They had expected fear, respect, or obedience, but instead, they received joy and curiosity. The officials could not silence it. Every attempt only made citizens listen more carefully. On Earth, governments celebrated the success of their explorers. The world watched as human broadcasts reached more planets. People understood that their humor, honesty, and courage could be more powerful than any weapon. Back on the Horizon Light, Mira reflected on the journey. "We did not fight," she sighed. "We did not demand change. We showed the truth, and the galaxy began to notice. That is the greatest strength we have." Ravi nodded, "And it is working. People are asking questions. Officials are thinking about their choices. The Empire is learning that they cannot control everything." On another world, Zendra, the humans were invited to speak to a group of young students. They asked questions about Earth, about life, and about the simple ways humans solve problems. One student asked, "How do you face something as big as the Empire without fear?" Mira smiled. We face it by knowing ourselves, by understanding the truth, and by speaking clearly. Fear disappears when people see the truth, and courage grows when people know they are not alone. The students listened carefully. They began to whisper their own questions to each other. They shared the stories with their families and friends. Slowly, quietly, curiosity became a wave that no empire could stop. Even some empire officials began to change. They saw the laughter, the simple questions, and the honesty, and they remembered why they had joined service long ago. They did not all rebel openly, but inside, many chose to help their citizens rather than only follow orders. Across the galaxy, humans had started a quiet revolution. Not with force, not with anger, but with courage, humor, and truth. The Galactic Empire's image was no longer perfect, but a little less rigid, a little more aware. On the horizon light, Mira, Ravi, and Ken watched the stars. They knew their journey was not finished. Many worlds still waited to hear the truth. Yet they also knew something important. The galaxy had changed forever. A small species from a distant planet had shown that honesty and courage could move. Planets, shift hearts, and inspire hope. Ravi leaned back in his chair. Who would have thought humans could change an empire with laughter? Ken laughed softly. It is the best kind of power. It cannot be stolen, destroyed, or hidden. Myra looked at her crew. We started as explorers. Now we are teachers of courage. The Empire will never be the same, and neither will the galaxy. They will remember the humans who showed that truth and laughter are stronger than fear. As the ship moved to its next world, citizens waved from spaceports. Children painted new banners, and families whispered the stories of humans who dared to speak plainly. Across stars and worlds, one simple truth spread. Even the greatest power can be changed when people see it clearly, laugh at its mistakes, and believe that they have the courage to ask questions. And so, humans did not conquer the galaxy with weapons, nor did they destroy the Empire. They changed it with honesty, curiosity, and laughter. The galaxy learned that courage and truth were not small things. They were the strongest forces in the universe. The horizon light sailed on, carrying humans and their simple but mighty gift, the power to inspire hope and change across the stars.